but the '90s was great. But I don't want to be that old guy that just says, "Oh, death metal's dead. Or there's nothing
Yeah.
going on." There's a lot
Metal
of cool
died in
shit.
1991. All right, hey, I back. Fuck that. I fall on. Hello, boys and girls. It's Red back with another interview in about 5 fucking months now. I am here with New York death metal band Reeking Aura. I'm with Will and Rick. Say hi, fellas.
Hello, thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Yeah, how
yeah.
you doing? How's it going? How you doing?
How
Thanks.
you? Yeah, I like the New York accent.
That's right.
Yeah. So yeah, all right. Let's not bullshit around. So let's just get into the questions. So, how did Reeking Aura start? What bands were you guys in before Reeking Aura? It seems like you guys done a lot of stuff before, a bit of doom metal here and there.
Yeah, we've traveled quite a path over the years. This band started in 2019. Um, the initial discussions really of this band started before that. It started around 2015. It was myself and the original guitar player Ryan Lipinski. We had talked about starting like a Swedish death metal band, and for years nothing really happened. And a couple of riffs, other than a couple of riffs. And then around 2019, we decided to get serious and we put a band together, and that was the initial lineup. We grabbed basically our my other band with Will at the time was Buckshot Facelift, so we took 4/5 of that band and basically picked us up and put us in Reeking Aura, and then that's how Reeking Aura started. We had Ryan also on guitar with Terrell, myself, Will, Tom, Andrew on bass, and then we had Keith Harris from Afterbirth, who's Will's current bandmate in Afterbirth. He played drums on our first demo, which EP slash demo. And that was the beginning. 2019, 2020, we really quickly tried to get the ball rolling with this band, and we got a demo out pretty quickly.
So sort of like with the King Diamond, we'll just take most of the band. We'll just do another. Since you won't join us, we'll just start another project.
Yeah, yeah, that's what happens. Sometimes you reach one project may reach its apex, and then you say, "Oh, we could still do something with this lineup here," and that's basically what happened.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes you just gotta move on. When something runs its course artistically. But I actually did want to ask. So, like, you're both in. So you guys were in Buckshot Facelift before you were in Reeking Aura. That's according. I haven't listened to. I think I've listened to a couple tracks off of it. That's like a grindcore band. So how did you guys go from wanting to do grindcore to death metal? Like what? Like you said you were influenced by a lot of Swedish death metal, which is very noticeable influence on your records. So like, what was like the inspiration? Like, it seems like you still do some work with that. But what was the inspiration? Like, all right, let's try out something else with what we are capable of doing.
Well, Buckshot Facelift, grindcore was kind of the base of Buckshot Facelift, but we experimented with a lot of different sounds. If you listen to our albums and EPs along the way, and we all love death metal too. And I think if you listen to, especially because Buckshot Facelift goes back to 2004. And Rick and Terrell, who are in Reeking Aura with me now, joined Buckshot Facelift in 2012. And if you listen to the EPs and album that they're on in Buckshot Facelift, you probably hear a little bit more of their death metal influence. These guys are, going back to the other question, Rick's obviously in Gray Skies Fallen, long-running New York City death doom band. Terrell's in Thetis. And people might know my vocals from I used to be in the band Artificial Brain, and I was in BioLich before that, and so I've kind of cultivated my own style of vocals. So even though Buckshot Facelift was a little more on the grind, power violence type of style, I think we all wanted to do something that was more in the kind of traditional death metal realm, and maybe try to hang with our friends and our peers in the death metal scene in a band, so to speak.
Yeah,
And
it seems. Oh, sorry. Go.
Buckshot Facelift's not officially 100% buried. There's still some life there once in a while if something happens. It's all up to certain things. Like we get asked to play some shows here and there, reunions. We're down for that. As far as new material, we may have some in the bag, but it's all up to our drummer. So we let him know that, and Buckshot is still showing some signs of life.
Like whenever you come up with a riff, you'll keep it in the depository. We'll
Yeah, there's a folder. There's a Buckshot folder for new riffs. Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah.
a lot of it. I was just gonna say a lot of it has to do with people's availability. Like he said, the drummer of Buckshot Facelift is, he's got a family and a career, and also some of the lineup changes we've had in Reeking Aura. Sometimes it just has to do with if people want to be in the type of band that might go out in a van every once in a while and rough it and play a lot of shows, or if they're concentrating on other factors of their life. But there's no animosity with any members of Buckshot Facelift or any of the former members of Reeking Aura. It's just people have different lifestyles and different things that they take on.
Yeah, it seems like you're able to make it work. You
Yeah.
can't rush these things anyway. But yeah, I noticed that you guys were in a lot of doom New York doom metal bands. So have you say that was like a big influence? Because I do notice like it's not explicitly death doom, Reeking Aura, but there's definitely a lot of doom metal influence in a lot of the tracks. I would say.
Um, I that's probably more my side of things. I in Gray Skies, we deal with harmonies a lot, just melody and stuff of that, things like that. So Reeking always kind of had a doom metal side to it, especially on the first record, which was more heavily influenced by the writing of Ryan Lipinski, our former guitar player. He also is in the doom metal realm. So, that album was more of like a doom death album, whereas this album I see people saying it's more of like a mellow death kind of thing. But yeah, the doom elements, I also see people talking about that. And it's not overt, right? We don't play very slow at all. Maybe at the beginning of the Cathedral's calculation, there's a little bit of doom there. But these aren't drawn out riffs. They're short, quick, get to the next riff kind of thing. And so there will be influences because that band, Gray Skies, next year in February is going to be 30 years of that band. So it's yeah, it's crazy to think about. And so there are a lot of ways that I can draw from my experience in the writing of this band.
So like you like to take like a bunch of your backgrounds and influences, and like so it's not explicitly just one thing. It's sort of like a culmination of a bunch of different influence that you like.
Oh man, yeah, with this band, especially with this record, with the first record, it was more of a one man kind of thing. I wrote one of the songs on that first album, but this album here is everybody contributes their own songs. None of these songs were written by two people. They were all like everybody brought like here's my song, here's my other song, here's everybody brought a song, and it was just like it's like a salad of fucking six songs. So it's like we were trying to put the oil and vinegar on top, make it nice.
Yeah, that actually since actually it leads to my next question. For a question for Will, I noticed you implement a lot of different vocal styles on this record. Like mostly, like, am I correct saying there's like a lot of slam influence on your vocals?
Well, that depends on people's definition of slam. I'm 43 years old and I grew up here on Long Island, New York. So slam, when you say slam to me, I think of Eternal Bleeding, and I think of the infamous Suffocation riff and Repudiation and Entorchment, bands that are kind of getting some reissues and getting some love now from the 90s. So slam to me, but slam has obviously become its own genre in like the last like 2 decades, I guess, too. So
Shout out to
yeah,
Chris Pervelis.
yeah. Shout out to Chris Pravelis from Eternal Bleeding, and but I'd also listen to some more modern bands that might be associated with the slam scene as a genre. So yeah, sure, man. The guttural vocals, some of the more. There's one part specifically, I guess, towards the beginning of what only worms witness. There's kind of a slam part there that you might consider that, or maybe Engorged Beyond Grudges on the new album. There's definitely stuff that's influenced by slam death metal that I grew up with here on Long Island. Yeah.
Well, because you implement a lot of vocal styles, especially on this last record. Would you say that was that you just want to like kind of like experiment with a lot of vocal styles, or you just want to like just see what fits within the song better?
Yeah, I just I aspire to have a wide palette of vocals. These guys these guys bring their A game to the songwriting. They put a lot of different, like we were just talking before in the last question. There's elements of doom metal. There's elements of grindcore. There's elements of brutal East Coast death metal. There's elements of old school Swedish death metal. These guys really mix it up in the songwriting. They're bringing their A game. When they get in the rehearsal room with each other, the guitarists add their own twists and twists and touches to the songs. So as a vocalist, I just want to compete with them and match them, and meet those guys where they're at too. So I don't want to be the weak link in the band, so to speak. And one of my favorite albums. Now, I'm not saying that this is what I do, but I'm saying this is something that maybe inspires me. None So Vile by Cryptopsy, the infamous, everyone knows it, right? It's no secret, but the Lord Worm's vocals on that. I'm another guy that goes back and listens to Lord Worm and his diversity of his vocal range and the low ends, the high ends, and all that. That to me is what you got to do as a vocalist. Are there some vocalists that just bring one range? That's great. I'm not knocking anybody, but me, I don't have long hair, I don't have tattoos, I don't do gymnastics off the stage and jump in the crowd. So I gotta bring something different to the table, and I try to complement each part with the vocal style that I hear in my head.
I would say you do that very well. I'm sure the band would agree too.
Thank you.
Act-
Thank you.
I would actually want to. We already talked about what genres of influence, but which bands in particular were influenced? You mentioned Swedish death metal. Did you grow up with all those early '90s bands like Dismember and Entombed and shit?
Yeah, I mean, me, more like Entombed I love, but this record here was mixed and mastered by Dan Swano from Edge of Sanity, so he's Swedish death metal royalty, and I don't want to sound like a fanboy, but I am. He's the guy who's like my idol of this kind of music, from when I was. Will said he's 40. What did you say, Will? 40 what?
Me? How,
45?
how
You're
old am I?
45 years
I'm
old?
40,
44?
43. Don't rush me. Don't rush me.
43. He's 42. Sorry. I'm 49. I'm gonna be 50 in 3 months, right? So like I'm there's some urgency here, and that's for a different story. But I grew up in the time when this shit was, so did Will, but I when I was buying Edge of Sanity records, they were new. They were just coming out. So I was very in that Swedish death metal kind of stuff, the Dan Swano stuff. And, then Opeth came later, and, they were a huge influence on me and my other band, big time. And, then, yeah, all the Swedish death metal, right? You got your Stockholm, and then you got your Gothenburg. And I loved all that stuff. I loved the influence. When I first heard Dark Tranquility's first record, it was tape trading, man. Tape trading. We used to trade tapes over the internet in 1992. Prodigy, look that up, everybody. Prodigy,
Uh-huh.
and I got the first Edges. Excuse me, I got the first Dark Tranquility record that way, and I was like, I can't believe this is like it's like to me, it was like Iron Maiden death metal, and this was before the first In Flames album and before the Jester Race, which took it to the next level. And then all that stuff was like, wow, you could play heavy, because I was into power metal too. I liked Halloween. I was just saw Halloween last night, actually, in New York. That was amazing.
Oh fuck! I played. I missed that show.
Yeah, dude, that was fucking great. Kai Hansen's a legend, the mess, the man, And so I always liked that kind of stuff to a small degree. I was not a huge power metal guy, but I like Kai Hansen, I like Halloween and Gamma Ray. So I would incorporate those kind of influences. And then when you see that there's death metal bands doing those kind of things, I was like, oh shit. So all that stuff, yeah, in a long-winded way, yeah. Swedish death metal is a shit.
Good. What about you, Rick? I mean,
Um,
Will. Sorry.
all good, man. Yeah, I was just gonna say, it brings back a memory of when we were in Buckshot Face. Well, as he said, Buckshot Face have never broke up, but it was more active in years past. I remember um, Bloodbath, from Sweden, being kind of like we all could agree on that band type of thing. Everyone was
Super
kind,
group. Yeah.
everyone's got their particular favorites of music, but Bloodbath was always something we came in the middle on. And I Bloodbath's changed over time and had different styles on their albums, different singers, but I don't think they ever put out a dud. That's a band with a great catalog. And if you explore, I mean, you could just go off of, if you're like someone who's kind of new to death metal or younger, you could just go into Bloodbath and like go on their metal archives or whatever, look up the members of that band and look up their other bands and
Yeah,
keep
it's
going. And it's a whole world of Swedish and other styles of
It
death metal
unlocks the
right there.
door.
I mean, what's
Yeah.
that lineup of Ackerfeld on vocals, Swano on drums, Swano on drums, and Blackheim from Catatonia on guitar, and Diabolical Masquerade, and then Jonas on bass. That's sick. That's so sick. And they put out yeah,
That's
that's
why
I
they call
love
the
Bloodbath.
power. It's called the super group.
Super group. That's right. And then that lineup was a short, small window there. They're a lot different now, but I mean that's the classic lineup of sick legends.
So, you want to add something, Will?
No, that's Besides aside from that, I grew up with like Rick said. I mean, I came in a few years later there, but all that whole old OG Nuclear Blast lineup of like Dismember, and
Sentenced, also
yes,
awesome.
Sentenced. I
The
remember
first Sentenced
I'm thinking I
album.
had this Nuclear Blast sampler back in the day. It probably had some stuff that was also on Earache maybe for distribution because there was like Mortification, Amorphous, Dismember,
Mm.
Macabre was on there. But yeah, we're getting into the woods now. Now I'm just talking about death metal compilations from the '90s. But yeah, the Swedish death metal thing was always prevalent, man. And I remember even back in the '90s when everyone was kind of just it had to be New York, it had to be brutal. That type of thing, Dismember always got respect. When they came around on tour, people always respected that style. It was just a little different. It was more exotic back in the '90s before the internet kind of mixed everything.
So are you more you guys more fans of like old school like melodic death metal? Do you listen to a lot of like modern melodic death metal? Because my friends just say modern melodic death metal is just power metal with just death metal vocals.
Well, there's a band called Majesties. Are you familiar
Oh,
with them?
I think I've heard of them. I haven't listened to them that much.
Yeah, they're awesome. It sounds like you're just a race in flames, but like more modern kind of. But yeah, I won't say I seek it out, but if it comes across my way, new stuff, yeah, there's definitely some fucking good new shit out there like that in that style for sure. Um, like I said, that band Majesties, and then oh man, there's so many I can't even think of right. What's that one band? I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank.
Is
Tip
there?
of my tongue.
Well,
Do you know any songs or albums or anyone who's in it?
Yeah, it's the shit, man. I'm sorry. It's more black metal than to this Moonlight Serenade,
Uh,
Moonlight Sorcery. Sorry,
yes,
Moonlight
yes.
Sorcery, Moonlight Serenade. That's a Beethoven song, isn't it? Moonlight Sorcery is more black metal, but that fucking band. There's a song on it, Into the Silvery Shadows of Night. It's just, that melody and that lead and the end of that song stays in my head sometimes for like months, 2 months. I'll wake up and it'll be like in my head. I'm like, oh Jesus Christ. So yeah, good melody. Good melody will make a song.
Make sure everyone checks that out over here. Actually, so that makes me want to ask. Like, you're from New York, so were the New York bands any influence on you guys at all, or you mostly just looked at like Sweden and other
Well,
acts?
Will might want to answer that because he kind of dealt with more of the New York scene than we.
Well,
Yeah,
I was gonna say Rick was like around more to catch that classic era, but when it comes to songwriting, like Rick, I don't know that like Long
Me-
Island death metal was a big thing for you. You're like right, influenced your writing over the years, right?
in New York, as far as New York bands like Typo Negative,
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, you did a
if
gothic band before, right?
well, Gray Skies Fallen is more of like a doom band, so Typo is probably the band. Them and Opeth are probably the two bands I've seen most live in my life. I probably saw Typo 13, 14 times. It was always amazing. I used to see Carnivore. Anytime Pete Steele would play locally, which would be often, I would go in the 90s. And then, I don't know what happened, but Typo definitely one of the great doom bands, in my opinion, that doesn't get really looked at as a doom band. They get looked at, oh, they're Black Number One or Christian Woman, but they're fucking heavy doom metal band, and they're awesome. And also Life of Agony, in a certain way, even though we're not hardcore, none of my shit was hardcore, but that album and the Typo, kind of went hand in hand. That Studio Systems 2 was cranking out some good records at the time. This band called Piston, a Staten Island band.
Yeah,
There were
yeah.
there were there were certain things. Josh Silver was producing those bands, and I don't know. There was a sound to the mid '90s New York like doom metal that which doesn't, even Life of Agony had some doom influences. Listen to
Oh yeah,
the
definitely.
guitar player, he loved Sabbath, and he was like stuff like that, but they would slow down and doom mosh pits, so there were things that were done in New York. New York was great in the 90s, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
to go see shows at the fuck yeah, Lemoore, go to the Ritz, go see Megadeth at the Ritz with the classic lineup, just hang out,
Huh.
right up front. It's
Yeah.
the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
What's up?
So
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, as you could tell, Rick had a much more classic New York City experience growing up and being into metal. Me, I'm here, like Long Island is kind of the suburbs just outside of Brooklyn, Queens, and Manhattan out here. And I was coming up in the late night, in like 96, 97, 98. I started going to shows as a teenager now. And it was a different experience. It was like local hardcore shows, internal bleeding, would bring out bands like Immortal Suffering from the city, Dehumanized was playing a lot of shows. Maybe you'd start to catch underground bands like Flesh Grind or maybe Broken Hope would be around, but it was a much more isolated kind of death metal experience. Suffocation was big at that point. At one point they were
Mm.
broken up and then they came back. But
Yeah.
so that and it's funny because if Terrell, our other guitarist, was here, I think Immolation and Suffocation are probably bigger influences on him and his generation, maybe because he's younger than me. So we span like kind of like a wide range of generations within this band. And then our drummer and bass player are a little bit younger than Terrell, really. So it's like it's
It's
all mixed in
crazy.
there, With the other, I'll end this question with this. At rehearsal the other day, there were two Suffocation T-shirts and an Afterbirth shirt, and
Yeah,
Rick had the old school Goodfellas reference shirt.
that's
Uh,
right.
which
And
one?
of course, it was with Frank Vincent, of course. Go home, get your shine box.
Yeah.
But to add real quick, like I could point to actual moments in time where my shit got molded, my influences. Because if you go on YouTube and you search Carcass Lemoore August 1995, you'll see that video and I'm right up front. And I know that's me because I remember where I was standing and I had the long hair at the time and I'm headbanging throughout that whole show. And that's the Heartwork tour. And that album was the one that took me and said, okay, so melodic death metal and brutal death metal can mix also together. And I hadn't heard necroticism by that, but I was Symphonies of Sickness. I knew Reek. I knew, but when Heartwork came out and to see that live was sick. So you could see me in Lemoore's videos on YouTube being with these amazing bands, Sabotage with Alex Skolnick on guitar, standing 2 feet away from that. You see me standing there. You can see me standing in certain videos that were like these bands, and it's like you could almost see like an aura going from the stage to me, and the influence being sucked into my body, and it's like this is what I
Osmosis.
got to do. This is what I got to do.
Reeking Aura.
Kind of, yeah.
Was it a big show or was there like
I mean, at Lemoore, like Lemoore is the standard of metal clubs in America from now until whenever. It is the if the rock capital of Brooklyn. I'm very honored to have played there. It's like the CBGBs of metal. It's all this and that. But in the '90s, they had some issues. A kid died there at a Life of Agony show. One of the bouncers threw him off the stage. He broke his neck and he died. And that was a big issue, I
I was
would
gonna
say.
say.
Yeah. And that was like around 95 or something. And after that shows were mm, I saw Carcass there for $5. Sometimes they were blasting out tickets, and they had five hardcore bands open for Carcass, and that was unbelievable to me. I was like, "There's no metal bands opening for Carcass, all hardcore bands." It was a weird time in the mid '90s. Also, so it was cool and it was weird at the same time. Metal was kind of on the outs in certain ways, but
Yeah.
it was still sick. Like, yeah, Lemoore was great, man. It's the great club.
They say the '90s was the best decade for death metal.
Well, yeah, as far as your OG kind of when these bands were cutting their teeth and stuff, you can't argue that, right, Roll?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, as a 43-year-old man, of course, I'm going to say the '90s was just like in the Matrix movie, the '90s was the height of height of death metal civilization. But I will say what's going on right now in the death metal scene, and maybe the last 5 to 10 years has given the '90s a run for their money. Man, there's some really great bands. And there's some really cool kind of technical, progressive, interesting stuff going on in death metal. You got a band like Tomb Mold, or Blood
Blood
Incantation.
incantation,
There's,
Oh yeah.
I mean, we could be here all day, but the '90s was great, but I don't want to be that old guy that just says, oh, death metal's dead, or there's nothing
Yeah,
going on. There's a lot
Metal
of cool
died in
shit.
1991.
yeah,
There, you just
yeah.
got to keep up with it. You got to keep up with it. That's the hard part. Oh, and that's before you were asking about, do we listen to melodic death metal? I wanted the band I couldn't think of that. Grotesqueries is a band from New England.
Mm.
That is kind of, they have an old school melodic death metal twist to what they do. So I think Grotesqueries is a great kind of newer, more modern band that does the melodic death metal thing.
Okay. Oh, that actually makes me want to. I mean, this wasn't written down, but I want to still. Do you guys keep up with the current scene a lot, or like, do you? I mean, especially Rick. He seems like you were like really involved with it. Would you say you're still at the same level of involvement now as you were back in the '90s, or you just kind of just see what piques your interest
With
a
like
little bit?
local, with like the local scene,
Sure.
or with just
I mean, global metal, but there's always new bands coming out. I'm just wondering, like New York bands.
yeah. I'm personally, I'm kind of transitioning from, I used to live up in Pennsylvania for 10 years, and now I'm back in New York. So I'm moving, I moved back to New York recently, and I find that now my social circles are more, I'm going to a lot more shows than I was doing the last 10 years in Pennsylvania. I'm going any opportunity I see to that there's, this fucking New York, dude, any day of the
Everything happens.
week, any day of the week, there's death metal shows, in Brooklyn, or and I could just go at any time. And now at this point, it's great because I know a lot of people in bands, and it's cool to see your friends and see them do well, and see who, the crowds that come out, and you could gauge, oh, this venue might be cool to play at. So I definitely have my finger on the pulse a little bit more over the last 4 months than I did over the last 10 years. And I think that's going to benefit us because I've been telling the guys in the band, I'm pretty laser focused now. Well, I kind of always was, but there were certain stumbling blocks in my way, and I'm trying to eradicate those. And now, laser focus as far as full steam ahead in these bands, and this is all I want to do. And yeah, I do have to get out there more and kind of network more and try to, you got to make plans. Things don't just fall in your lap, right?
No, you gotta work for it, man.
You got to
Can't
work
do it
for it. So,
passively.
right, and I try to tell people perseverance. I've been doing this now 30 years. I can look at things like as an elder statesman in a way, even though my bands aren't successful. My other band isn't a chart topper or anything of that nature. There's a certain underground mystique to it, I guess. But you have to persevere, otherwise you're going to be doing shit you don't want to do.
Yeah.
You're going to be settling for things, and I'm not really much of a settler.
Yeah,
you know
you always have to have that ambition,
yeah,
because I mean, I would say that as artistically, that's the main thing you should go for, because death metal not a very commercial genre in and of itself. So it's not like you're going in for a genre that you'll be the next Metallica or something. So
right. But
you're just
you can elevate it, and I'm not saying it's in a bad way. You can kind of elevate death metal. In the last 2 days since this record has been out, I've seen people talk that I don't they talk about how death metal is too brutal for them, but they love to listen to this record. And to me, that's like, okay, that's good, because you don't like death metal, and I got a guy sitting here with guttural vocals, doing the most guttural, brutal vocals, and you like that. To me, that's good. To me, that's
it's
good.
progress.
You
You
try to
gotta wean
transcend
yourself
things.
onto it. I'm trying
You
to get
try to
my
yeah, exactly.
I'm trying to get my girlfriend into death metal. I'm trying. She had a bit of a hostile direction, even bolt thrower. So this might be a bit of an uphill battle, but it's okay. I think
we
we'll get there, right?
we do love both thrower in this band.
Yeah, and we
Trying to get.
we just that idea of keeping up with what's new and what's modern and what's fresh. For me, yeah, like I try to, man. It's sometimes it's harder. We're older now. We got our different responsibilities, but I want to be out there playing shows with my bands, and I want to be out there checking out the newer bands and supporting them. And I feel like at this point we gotta keep abreast of how the scene is and what's going on and where the good shows are and who's booking them and that sort of thing. And it's to still be in the mix. It's a young man's game. The guys that are in their 20s, shout to our old drummer Sam Sherrick, who played on our first album. He's in a bunch of bands. I got a project with him, Exsanguinated, that we're hopefully going to bring back some point for album. But the guys that are in their 20s and early 30s now, it's their scene, and we're just trying to keep up with you guys out there, man. So yeah, there's a lot of great young bands, and like I said before, this is kind of a renaissance period for death metal. There's a lot of great bands coming out of it too. So I want to be here for it, and I want to still be in the mix. I don't want to be like certain friends of mine who are my age or older who are like kind of bitter, and like I
These
said
new
before,
bands are no good.
death metal's dead. There's been no death metal died in 1999. It is what I love music. I don't want to be. I'm bitter about enough in my life. I don't want to be bitter about my fandom of music.
Well, do you feel like you're sort of being like necessarily like overtaken by the younger bands, or do you feel you'll be like the elder statesman that like people will like, oh, he was around in the '90s, he's been around, he's more experienced, more distinguished,
Yeah,
he's not a green.
yeah, I'm kind of seeing that more and more. Like I said, I was kind of I feel like I was in jail for 10 years in a way, like being away, I was away. I tell people I was away for a while. So now I'm back. And in that time, 10 years have passed, and my other band, Gray Skies Fallen, we put out what three we put out two very good in my opinion albums, and I think there was a third one in there at somewhere, but the last two were very good. And you start building up your resume more, so now you come out of the jail, you come out of the woods, and it's like, oh shit, you're 50 years old, and now people look at you like you have this catalog of records that you've made. And I know Will's in the same boat now because we both have kind of a good lengthy discography that we can talk about. And people I think respect that, which goes back to the perseverance thing that I was talking about earlier. Right? So I think you gotta dig in and keep going.
Yeah. But, people fantasize too much about success instead of actually working for it. That's the
Yeah,
one of the biggest
dude,
follies of mankind.
dude, I went I
Oh,
went 25 years without my bands being signed. So like you just gotta keep at it, because especially if you know what you're doing is worthwhile. If
Yeah.
if
Believe in
you're
the vision.
genuine, if you genuinely believe in the vision.
yeah, yeah, and it's the idea of success. It's like, what is success? I've been in what, 6, 7, 8 bands over the course of my life, and Reeking Aura has been going since 2019, and success to me, like Rick said, I can look back on a catalog, I can stand on that, and I have a day job to make money, and to take care of my bills and stuff like that. It's nice that we could sell merch and play shows and break even. And we've done a lot of coming out of our pocket, over the years for our bands. Like Rick said, certain projects of mine and bands of mine were never signed or weren't signed for a while, and you got to press up your own CDs and your own records and your own
Right.
tapes back in the day. So it's great to be working with a label like Profound Lore. So success to me is just to be like Rick said, signed. Profound Lore is a great label to be working with. Do they buy us Lamborghinis? Was I able to buy a new house for my mom off of the first album? No, this isn't. That I've heard people ask me some outlandish things every once in a while. Maybe younger, more naive, metal fans. And unfortunately, there's a harsh truth to death metal in general for some people, man. Even at this stage in the game, I think even your Cannibal Corpses and your obituaries, who those guys, they work extremely hard to be where they are, and they have to, and they're the ones. Yes, before, are we competing with the younger generation? I think those are the guys that literally have to compete with the younger generation because they have to be on the road,
Yeah.
you
Shit.
know, and they have to be working day and night. You know, those tours are. I'm sure those guys are. You know, they're living their dreams of being in metal bands, but it's not a vacation like
It's not
people think.
glamorous all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah. So you know, we competing with the young? No, we got the younger generation in our band. We life hacked it, and we got a drummer and a bass player. You know, and Terrell's still pretty young too, our other guitarist, man. So that's, you know, that's what keeps us going. Is it's a multi generational band, and what we all have in common is a love for this thing. You know, and me and Rick, we still want to be out there, you know, playing shows and being part of the scene. You know, and that's what we have in common with the other guys in the band.
It
Yeah.
seems like you've already accomplished what you're really going for with the band.
I wanted this record to we when you guys were just talking, like I was thinking like we kind of took a circuitous route, if you will, to this. Whereas we weren't out there 100 nights a year playing shows in a van that a lot of our friends' bands do. And we talk about struggle, you know, some there's a lot of people that take a less stable job in their day life financially so they can go on the road with their band, and they're living, you know, very tight to you know to the vest as far as you know how much you got to count every penny you make from your merch, this and that. We didn't do that. We've been selective with our shows, and we definitely said we have to let the record do the talking for us, and then the record is going to open some doors for us. That was our plan behind the scenes, and I'm going to let it out there. You know, who cares, right? We said we're going to put a fucking awesome album out, and then there's going to be people that want us to play. And the album's only been out 2 days, and you know, but
I
the
got it.
feedback has been good, and we're hoping that the mission was accomplished. So we're going to see what happens the rest of this year, which we're already putting some runs together. But more importantly, we're going to see what happens next year.
Yeah.
I think is going to be an important you know, caliber of where we are.
I'm looking forward to seeing that. But it definitely seems like you already have some notability. I mean, the way reason. Will, you wanted to add something?
What's that?
Did you want to add something? Like you're about to
Uh,
say something.
no, 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 no.
Okay. Oh, sorry. It's just so you have a lot of success already because way I found out about you guys, you opened for Mortician back in December 2023. What was that? Well, was Do you are you fans of Mortician or was it like, yeah, we'll play for them?
I uh I played with Mortician in 1997 in Gray Skies Fallen. So I have some sort of history with those guys, even though they probably don't remember that. They obviously don't remember it. But yeah, we're friends with Sam, the drummer of Mortician's a really cool guy. He's also in Morpheus Descends. And we've had some chats with Will, and you know, he's a funny guy, he's a cool guy. And but you know, we played 2 shows with Mortician, back-to-back nights, and yeah, they were very memorable shows for us for various multiple reasons. Yeah.
Yeah, it was at that was at St. Vitus Bar. I think they closed down, didn't they?
Yeah. Unfortunately, that was a big shot for New York scene. That's the modern day Lemoore. That's, you know, the place where everything happened. And you know, since they've been closed down, they've kind of transitioned into like a promotional vehicle. You know, they book shows now, which is good that they're still doing something. So I don't want to
Solid.
speak for those guys, but I hopefully one day they could open up another venue somehow.
So do you have you opened for any other notable death metal bands? I'm assuming they were probably mostly New York bands.
Well, we our first show was opening for Malevolent Creation
Oh shit, that's a
in
good show.
Brooklyn.
Yeah, that was our first show ever.
That was, yeah, that we were offered to do that show, and we did a run with Pyrexia and our friends Animals Killing People. Um,
Half
uh,
and
Half,
Carrion
yeah,
Vale. Yeah.
yeah, at Carrion Vale. We did a run with Carrion Vale. What Rick? Well, Rick, you have like the running. Rick keeps a tally of like all of our shows and the line and our lineups. Rick has like a very detailed record of all of our shows, right? If
Yeah,
I'm not
it's
mistaken. Yeah.
from the first you know, since this was a new band, I said let me document every show that we ever played. And I have it on here, notes. You can see very documented, very well kept. It has every band we've ever played with, the date and the lineup. And we've had, let me scroll to the bottom. We've only played 39 shows ever. and we've had six, seven lineups, seven live lineups, which is a lot of switching out, but now I think everything is good. We got our lineup stable, and there might be a time where somebody can't do a fest if we're ever invited to play for, or can't do a big show and we need to fill in here and there. But this is the lineup now, and it's a very stable thing, and yeah, that's it.
There's actually a festival in Connecticut in a few months. Would you guys be going to that? Or
What festival would that be?
I forgot what it was titled. I interviewed More. Are you familiar with the band Morgue Terror? I interviewed
Mhm.
him on my channel too.
Yeah, yeah. I well,
Been a
I
long
know
time ago.
I know that band. I know of that band, and I just know like my friend Adam does a noisecore project, Anal Birth, which has a very cult following in the scene, and I help him out live with that. So we headlined the Connecticut Gore Fest a month or two ago,
Uh-oh.
and then
Sick.
a year or two ago, my other band, Afterbirth, we played the Connecticut Death Fest. And I just know there's a lot more going on in Connecticut all of a sudden in the last few years than I had ever seen in the past, like in my time, in terms of death metal and grind. There seems to be a lot of shows. And they seem to have like a fest or two, a year, I guess, run by different people. So yeah, it is a little bit of a trek to get from where I live to Connecticut. It's one of the closer markets for sure for us to play in. But just to go there for a show would be a little bit of a trip. So I don't know if I'll make it to that one, but Connecticut is definitely like we played a show in I think that was in New London, Connecticut.
Wallingford,
Wallingford, Okay, so yeah, we played a show in
Cherry Street
Cherry
Station.
Street Station last year. That was pretty cool, and we definitely want to get back to Connecticut. So, definitely a lot popping in Connecticut, more so than maybe in the early 2000s and the 90s lately. That's for sure.
Yeah, I just got actually this morning. A promoter from Connecticut reached out and asked something. I got to
There you
double
go.
check if it was about, maybe it was about that fest you were talking about.
Yeah.
I got to double see. I got to check.
Might be
I'll
very
see.
serendipitous. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll check
right.
your name. All right. So let's discuss your latest record real quick. It's called "On the Promise of the Moon." It's a really fucking good record. They gave it to me in advance to listen to. So what was the songwriting process like? Was that similar to your previous album, or was that just you just came up with riffs, you put it together, you see what the end just came up with the final product? Were you trying to experiment with anything new, or were you just trying to get kind of perfect what you did with on Blood and Bone Meal?
Well, Blood and Bone Meal was like I said, was more of a one man kind of writing
Mm-hmm.
process where Ryan, our old guitar player, wrote the majority of the songs. I wrote one of the songs of the seven or eight that were on that record. And that's the song that kind of, if you want to say, kind of carries similar style over to this record. You could see that in that song a little bit, the more melodic, black death, whatever I was doing in the riff and main riff of that song. But so this album was not like that at all, where everybody, like I said, everybody just came with the song. And I think that's what we're going to be doing from now on. It's just like, because everybody is a good songwriter. Nobody needs to have anybody else on top of them when they write. And the input comes from after the person crafts their song and submits the song to the band, then everybody else can add their little touches onto what's created. So that seems to be the process that worked for this album, and I'm carrying that over to the other band in a certain way. Actually, no, let me scratch that. That band we're writing differently now, but it's I'm definitely changing the way I've written for 30 years. Over the last 2 years, things have totally changed the way I've written, I've writing, and now and yeah, it's opened my mind to a lot of things,
Hmm.
possibilities. So, yeah, the writing was 100% different on this album, the long-winded answer to that question. And everybody brought their own songs to the table. And I think that's how we're going to continue to do it.
Yeah, and I would just add that the way once these guys do that, they all write the songs, bring them to each other, and I end up with an instrumental recording that I just I sit there with my notebook and write it out, and by the time we all get in the rehearsal room together, it's almost like everyone we just got to put the puzzle pieces together. Everyone knows their part that they have to play. It's a very streamlined process, so it's very different. My other band, Afterbirth, lives a lot closer and more convenient together in the same like county here in Long Island, and we're able to rehearse a little bit more frequently and conveniently. So we write a lot of stuff in the rehearsal room. So this really works because with Reeking Aura, it's a little more spread between New York and New Jersey, and the the way the writing style that was introduced on this record really streamlined everything and made it much more efficient.
Yeah. So like Will, after like all the instrumental parts, did you come in and add your vocals, or was that similar? You know, everything. You know, you came with the vocals, and then for some songs, they kind of built the song around that.
No, the vocals, I across the board, most of my bands, I usually add the lyrics and the vocals after the song is complete. It's almost like I want to see uh the uh see it as a complete instrumental, so I know exactly how to build the lyrics and how to arrange the parts, so they snap into the grid or whatever, so to speak, like or like a kid's coloring ditto. Everything's got to be lined up so I can put the colors exactly where they have to go. The colors being the vocal parts. Maybe something, if that makes sense. I want these guys to have everything assembled and have all the architecture in place. If there's a guitar solo or a little guitar harmonic, if there's a little break here where they stop for a second, I want to know exactly what's going on so I can select the right vocal part, and make it really, because sometimes with vocals, there's you got to lay it in a certain way, and then once we get into the rehearsal room and we do it, we're actually playing it physically. Maybe there's a different inflection to it, or maybe it comes out a little different than I was hearing it on the instrumental that I was listening to on my phone, while I was writing. So, you tweak it here and there. But yeah, I want to know exactly what these guys are doing so that I can MC it perfectly for them.
So like, do you also do the when you do the vocals? How do the lyrics come about? Like, what kind of themes do you usually go for? Do you like listen to the instrumentals and then just think, okay, what kind of themes would go with this type of song? Or aesthetic?
Yeah, yeah. A lot of times, yeah, Rick's not allowed to know my lyrics. No one in the band knows my lyrics. No, I'm just kidding. Uh, a lot of times I'll have a kind of a concept, especially with Reeking Aura. It's kind of very influenced by nature, and we call ourselves agricultural death metal, which it's just it's a tagline that is based on the art and the lyrics of the band and how we try to differentiate ourselves, and it's based on a little bit of real life experience with gardening, landscaping, nature appreciation, and kind of trying to bring the lyrics maybe to a little bit more of an old fashioned Americana type of morbidity. We talk about animals and nature and harvesting fish and shellfish and vegetables and manure and there's a lot of dirty, gritty, gross things that come with all of that. So, and it is a little bit of my real life experience. So with Reeking Aura in particular, manure, mulch, worms, fishing, burying dead animals. There's a lot of shit that just kind of made it into the first album and the second album's lyrics that are just kind of part of everyday life, or part of the natural kind of like life, I
Shit,
guess.
that's what it is.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
All right.
Detritus, detritus. Yeah.
Actually, Rick, I wanted to ask you something. Well, I think you already pretty much kind of answered this. So I take it you and Terrell, you write riffs independently, and then like you see what you can kind of concoct with that.
Well, not only me and Terrell, it's also our extremely talented bass player TJ, who's is a guitar player in his other band, and he what only Worms witness was TJ's contribution to the record. He's like, oh, by the way, guys, here's a song, and it's like the sickest fucking song. So, and then Hudson, our drummer, which a lot of people aren't gonna. A lot of look, we're the luckiest band in the world, right? Because Hudson is an amazing drummer, and he also brings to the table incredible writing abilities. And like you think of writing drummers, I think of like Neil Peart, Mike Portnoy. You think of drummers that write songs, Charlie Benanti. Guys that like I
Technical.
don't know. Yeah, I just put them on a different level because you're a drummer, man. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Stereotypes, obviously.
and you're coming to the table with these fully realized songs, multiple parts, already written and recorded in MIDI. It sounds like Castlevania, 8-bit. It's That's how he sends the songs. So yeah, we each do it separately, and if anybody wants to sprinkle a little oregano on top or a little this and that on top, we can do that. But the main thing is already prepared individually, and I think that's served us well in this album.
It's a great system.
Yeah, yeah, it totally is for us right now.
Yeah.
I don't think we're gonna change that at all because I'm itching to start writing the third album, and we're already getting the ideas going because I want to, instead of 4 years in between records, I want to do 2 years or a year and a half. You know, that's just
So like,
me.
yeah, I mean, you can't rush art anyway, but it seems like you got the creative juices flowing already when you see
Yeah, most
everyone.
definitely, most definitely, man. And 60, I'm closer to 60 than I am to 40 in a couple of months. So that's how I look at life, and so I want to be as productive and as high quality as possible. That's it.
You'll age like a fine wine. That's as they
That's
say.
right. I'm half Italian, so I know a good vino.
Yeah. So actually, speaking of instrumentals, there was a instrumental, Lunar. Was it the Lunar Rumination? That was the nice instrumental. So was that just something your bass player came up with because there was a lot of bass on that, and you just decided to throw in, or was it let's add like a nice little break to the album from the intensity?
Well, it was more of the second half. We wanted intermission, right? I look at this record as a it's only 32 minutes long. Without Lunar Rumination, it's 28 minutes. And I wasn't saying this is too short. It needs this. I said it would be perfect if it would have right in the middle of the record an intermission, like interlude. We had interludes on our first record. On our Fires and Deep Frost EP, there was an interlude. It was handled by Terrell. And
Mm-hmm.
Terrell is the one that wrote this interlude, our big guitar player. And there is bass on there. I believe it's bass synth. And he also does viola. And viola. You know what I'm saying? So he does all acoustic guitar on there. And we were like, Terrell, we need this interlude. Let's go, Terrell. And he's like, don't worry about it. I got it. I got it. And right when we needed it, he sent the Lunar Rumination. I said, there's the interlude right in the middle. That's the perfect intermission to the carnage.
It's a really nice interview. It's very antithetical to the rest of the album. That's what I.
It serves a purpose, I think.
All right. Well, now let's get to some miscellaneous questions. These are questions I ask every band that I interview. So, do you guys listen to do you listen to a lot of genres of metal? I mean, you already talked. You listen to power metal, Swedish death metal, you listen to melodic death metal. So, but do you mostly just stick with death metal, or do you like having a variety? And do you also listen to a lot of non-metal stuff?
Hmm. Short answer, yes. I mean, my main collecting thing and my main thing death metal is more of a lifestyle choice for me, but it's the main thing. But I love grindcore. I love a lot of black metal. I love a lot of hardcore. I have some punk rock stuff in my collection. I love hip hop. If you look at my record collection, it's a little varied, but
Extensive.
death metal and kind of black metal and grindcore that's has connections to death metal is like the biggest part of my record collection. So that's kind of the short answer there.
Rick?
And for me, I'm just more like my first record that I got was Quiet Riot Metal Health when that was a thing in 1983. You know how old I am right now? Talking about 1983, bro. And I got that record. I was 7 years old, so that's all I know is, and that's not a heavy. That was at the time heavy metal, right? But that's what I cut my teeth on when I was 7 years old, and then after that was Iron Maiden and things of that nature. So that's all I know in my life. And yeah, I like other genres. Sure, I'm appreciative of good music. I love progressive rock. Camel is one of my favorite bands ever. Thanks to Michael Ackerfeld when we used to chat. There's a little name drop there. We used to chat on email. He used to talk about Camel all the time. I said, let me check out Camel, and now you could tell where Opeth comes from. And if people like Opeth, check out Camel. And I like Caravan. I like Hatfield in the North. I like prog stuff from that kind of area. Anyway, but yeah, but it's mostly metal, and I'm not 100% up on every, like this week. I knew what releases were coming out because we were going against them, but I'm not up on every I'm not up on every week. I know a couple of friends of mine, they know what's coming out every Friday. Like they know, this and that. And I'm not really, I got a lot going on, and besides the band stuff, I have another passion in my life I'm trying to build up. So it's kind of like I'm divided in between my free time and stuff. I only have so much time.
And only so many hours in the day.
That's right. And I'm up like 19 and 20 of those, so what am I gonna do? I
Sleepless.
gotta sleep sometime.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, hopefully, one day they'll figure out a way so we won't have to sleep, save us
Yeah,
a bit of time.
that's true.
That actually leads me to my next question. Okay, so this is I love asking this question to metalheads because it actually makes them think. Okay, so I'm sure you know the hypothetical. You have to bring 3 albums to an island. Very isolated island. But here's the twist: you can't bring any albums that are metal or metal adjacent. So you can't bring any hard rock. You can't bring any punk, anything like that. So you have to choose 3 non-metal or non-metal adjacent albums to bring that island. What are you bringing?
Whoa, that's tough.
Lorena McKennitt.
Mm.
That's one that I'm gonna choose.
What is
Lorena
what?
McKennitt was
What
like
is that? Who is that? What is that?
she's like a Celtic kind of like she's from Canada, but she's like a Celtic. Like in the '90s, she had great records. The Mask in the Mirror is the one I'm talking about right now. That's one that jumps to mind. I would recommend people check that album out. Yeah,
All right.
that's sick.
I'm sorry, Rick. Go ahead. You got
No,
you
no,
got
no, no.
because I
I
got
think we
two more.
should. No, no, no. Go ahead.
What?
Okay. Well, because I actually have like my little rack of my CDs that aren't metal. Like, so I'm kind of cheating. It's like within sight here. Stone Temple Pilots, Purple, their second album. All right. If that's not because I don't think that counts as
Wait,
metal.
what was the qualifications again? They couldn't be what?
No metal or metal adjacent. So you can't bring
Okay,
any hard rock or punk.
so you can't do Stone Temple
Okay.
Pilots.
I mean, Stone Temple Pilots' second album was pretty light, but okay, all right. So let's go. I'm gonna go with the Jerky Boys' first album
Yes, yes.
because you're gonna need a laugh if you're out there on the island. Um,
Yeah.
and I mean, kind of, it could be. I could make this real easy because I'm also a big hip hop fan. I mean, you could go with Nas Illmatic, and then I'll try to make the third one not hip hop, so it's a little tougher for me. I don't know if Rick, if you got any to jump in with.
I was thinking a Porcupine Tree album. That's more of like, I mean, that's not heavy or anything of that nature. There was or Blackfield, some Steven Wilson, the first Blackfield album. That's another band. That's a Steven Wilson from Porcupine Tree side project. He did it with, I forget this gentleman's name. He was an Israeli gentleman. I forget his name. It was a two-piece. And they did a live album live in New York City in 2007. I was there. It was during a blizzard. And I remember I trekked during the snow to get there. And I never saw that. Is a DVD of that. I never saw it. I want to see if you could see me in there. But that's an album. The first Blackfield album. Sick.
And I'm gonna go with McCoy Tyner, the real McCoy. It's a great jazz album, a great old school blue note jazz album that I just happen to like. Um, so yeah, that's my three.
Well, hold on. Will, which were the first Jerky Boys or the second?
Oh man.
I would have to go first just for the classic sake. I mean, I don't want to I don't want to use up the Jerky Boys for 2 picks if I only got 3 albums. You know.
Well, if we're gonna go like comedy, I'll throw in one for the van rides, and that's Andrew Dice Clay, The Day the Laughter Died, Part One. That's the best when he's at Dangerfield unannounced, and it's great. That's one as far as that.
I'm
Yeah,
surprised that I was. Those are. I will. I mean, not that those. Not that I'm going to disqualify those. It's just a bit unconventional.
yeah. Once Will threw that out there, I was like, for a third real music one though. Oh
You don't
man,
have to. I mean, your choices are fine unless you want to decide another one.
they're not. I mean, I love classical music, and I'm not like a aficionado. So I can't name certain things. I just like to listen to it. I guess I'm more of a metalhead than I'm not because I'm having a hard time coming up with a third non-metal. Oh, maybe like what's that band? Mogwai or some sort of post rock. I guess Sigur Ross. The album, the a parentheses album. You know what I'm talking about?
I think
That's a sick.
I've something I'm familiar with. I don't think I've listened to it though.
That's also a great. If you like smoking weed, which we do in this band, you know, Sigur Ross and that kind of post rock trip out stuff is also sick for an island. If you're on an island, man, yeah, yeah. All right, so Lorena McKenna, The Mask in the Mirror, Blackfield, first record, Untitled, and then the one I just mentioned, which I am already forgetting because I smoke so much weed. Oh, Sigur Ross, parentheses. Yeah, those are the three. Yeah.
Plus Andrew Dice Clay.
Dice when you want to laugh because you're stuck on an island. You're gonna need to laugh at something.
Get me Brett Weird, damn it.
I said Brett Weir. Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right,
I had the
cool.
bootlegs, man. I had the bootlegs before they were even before they put the records out. The bootlegs, they would go around high school. We would trade, trade. People would just have the Jerky Boys tapes, and then like 6 months later, the record came out.
Did you watch the movie? I think I did see it. I was like, yeah, it
Dude,
wasn't too big.
dude, I saw that in the theaters, bro. You understand what I'm saying? I saw the Jerky Boys movie in the theaters. That's how into the Jerky Boys we were.
Did you?
Not a good movie, not a good movie, but we're Jerky Boys freaks.
Did you? This is the super across the way. All right, let's not.
Okay, sizzle chest. Yeah.
I use that line sometimes now. That's it. I'm not
I
gonna
just
All right. So this is another one. So any deeper cut bands you guys think people ought to check out?
I mean, the whole underground death metal scene.
yeah.
I mean,
Any
what depends on what's a deep cut, man. Well, in light of this melodic death metal conversation, intestine ballism from Japan, I see getting some more attention nowadays with
dude,
reissues.
not to jump in, Will. I never heard. I guess I have heard of that band over because Terrell's mentioned them over a couple times, but over the last 2 days, I've seen them mentioned in our reviews or people talking about our new record, and they've mentioned that band in particular multiple times. So I gotta look into that band because I don't know who they are.
Are they reviews on Metalum or is it
Just like people's comments on Reddit I've seen, or actually the newest review I just saw today, which was Sputnik Music, gave us a very good very high rating. Also mentioned that band as well in comparison. So yeah, it seems to be if anybody in Japan wants to bring us over and put us with those dudes, we're absolutely willing to play in Japan and able.
Yeah, it's not a problem. We'll do it.
Not a problem at all.
language barriers not an issue?
It doesn't matter. We bring our phones with us.
Terrell, our guitarist Terrell's smart. He'll figure it out. He'll be talking whatever language we need him to in a couple of days. He's got it.
Okay, so any advice for people interested in starting a metal band?
Get on the same page with everybody else in your band, and not just the music. Like liking the same bands, isn't enough. Like make sure you want to do the same things. Make sure you got like you can commit to like showing up and being at rehearsal and not. You got to value each other's time. You know what I mean, man? You can't waste people's time and waste people's money and. It's finding the right mix of people, and then also with Reeking Aura. Not to say that was any of the issues with our past bandmates, but then other times you got certain people might have a career or might have young children that they're raising, and other people might be more focused on just playing shows and wanting to grind it out in the music scene and be in a lot of bands, and that's their. Like Rick said before, we have catalogs that we can kind of stand on now and be proud of. That's our thing. So you just got to find people that not only like the same music as you, but want to have the same kind of mission as you with it.
That's the thing for me. If anyone's going to ask me that question, what would you tell somebody who's looking to start a metal band? What do you want out of that band? Do you want that band to play Maryland Death Fest? Or do you want to have fun on weekends and maybe play the local venue that has metal shows once in a while? Those are two distinctly different things. So if you want the serious path, you need to make sure that you got like-minded individuals, guys that all subscribe to the same things. And if there's one or two people in the five where it doesn't work out, it's going to cause a problem. So you have to make sure that everybody is on the same page. And sometimes people think they are, or they want to be on that page, but they can't because of things in their life or things that they deal with, and it's up to that person to then decide, okay, can I give what I need to give to the band that deserves that's everybody else is putting 100% in. So you need that. Or if you're looking to just have some fun, that's less serious, and that's definitely more, you could find more people. The pool is bigger, probably.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The
There's
pool of
more people to have
musicians
fun.
is bigger, right? So you're not going to find the guys that are just, like I said, laser focused, and things that, but and you also don't want to waste time, like Will said. You don't want to waste years, right? So you got to also try to get it right, first.
I would say that advice is not just useful for starting low, man. I think that's useful advice for pretty much any endeavor in life. Just don't be an ass and communicate and make sure you're on. If you're in a partnership or anything like that, make sure everyone's on the same damn page.
Yeah, that's basically it, man. You don't want to waste time. You don't want to waste money. Those are the two most important things. Two of the most important things in this life, time and money, right? So you can't
Pretty
waste
much.
either of those. I have plenty of time and I don't have much money, if any. But they're very important. So you don't want to throw either of those. You don't want to toss either of those into the wind, willy-nilly.
Yeah. All right. All right. Any closing words from you guys?
Nah, just check out our record,
Yeah.
Check out our record. If you like what you hear, talk to your fest promoters, talk to whoever you got to talk to. Let people know that we want to go out there and do the things.
Maybe
That's
go to
it.
that Connecticut festival I was talking about earlier. I'll get the name for you guys.
Yeah, hook us up. We'll see what it's all about.
Yeah, we appreciate the time. We appreciate being on the platform and the interest in the record, man. And shout out to everybody out there supporting. We want to come to wherever you live and play in your town, man.
Yeah.
Even if it's
That's
in
about it.
California.
No.
Especially
Yeah.
if it's in California. Talking, not to reopen the door, but yeah, a West Coast or a California tour, that would be ideal. That'd be great.
All right.
Absolutely. Canada,
Hmm.
anything.
Anywhere. Just get me there. Just get on a plane. We'll go there.
I
Yeah,
think
bro.
I think we'll be able to make a good impression no matter where we go.
Are you
Yeah,
guys
man.
gonna do another show in New York anytime soon?
We have a show May 9th, so I'm not sure exactly when this is going up, but May 9th is the Rage of Metal Wanna Fest, booked by our friend Ed Farsity in New York, one of the great New York promoters, and it's a weed and death metal fest. And it's going to serve as our record release show, and that is at the Meadows in Brooklyn, New York
The Meadows.
on May
Oh, that's a good
9th.
one. I saw Cryptopsy there a couple of years ago. That was
Oh,
a
yeah. The Meadows and the Monarch and the Wood Shop. They're three venues right next door to each other, small, medium, and large. And it's really picked up the slack since Vitus closed, because there's been some great shows there, and they're suited for any type of show, a small show or a huge show, or right in the middle. And right now we're playing right in the middle.
you got everything you need there. All right.
Fuck yeah.
I think this has been an amazing interview. Will, Rick, thank you guys for joining me. Everyone else, check out Reeking Aura's new record, available for streaming and for purchase. And thank you for watching, and you can all fuck off now.